to what we did
Okay.
on the other one. There we go. So I will hand over to you, and it's up to you whether you want to start with the kind of the bit in the OneNote, or whether you want to jump to Word, or whether you want to kind of bring it in whatever order you want.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, thanks for this opportunity anyway. I want to try and make the most of it. Even just trying to think about that is useful and makes me think that although I might not quite know necessarily what I'm trying to get out of this at this stage, it's the right thing to do to take it on, to make me think about that and do it. Yeah. So even you asking the question of whom are you photographically, I thought, what an interesting question that is. And tried to sort through a few photos and thought, what does it mean really to me, and what photos, and then got at the end of it, looked at the photos I'd picked and then thought, that's probably pretty depressing actually. And I wonder if I'll pick the same ones a bit further down the line, because if you sort of look at those and think, okay, so you're saying that identifies you photographically, does it? And then it's like, oh my goodness, okay. But I also took it slightly, not lightheartedly, but you know, just not trying to give you my best images, you know, if indeed I have those, but you know, to try and use that to talk through them a bit. Yeah, in you asking those questions and the stuff I put in that Word file,
yeah,
I just thought what I'd really probably quite like to do is get going, if you like, and be have a workflow, have a flow.
mm-hmm.
I'd like to talk about imagery, and it's an entirely personal thing just to do that because I find it relaxing and interesting and therapeutic. And I would be very pleased for others to engage in that discussion with me.
Yeah.
What I'm not necessarily looking to do is for it to be any kind of egotistical thing. You know, I just enjoy it. And partly I sort of look around, as we've discussed before, and I think, where is this activity going on? Where are these groups of interested people meeting and talking about these things, or any of these things outside of the typical camera club environment?
Yeah.
Which don't seem to tick the box for me. So I thought, if I could work with you to try, I suppose, a few different avenues, and you help me identify what they are, then maybe I'll find a way of expressing myself continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Minute, it's a bit piecemeal and very much, you know, when I've got a few minutes thought, but there's I really would like to do it. And if I can see what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go with it, what the end output is, then it will probably force me to sort of put a slot in my calendar every week to kind of, and that's when I thought, well, I'd got this, you know, I tried to start doing this blog and write a few things down. That's kind of typical of the kind of things I'd like to write down.
Yeah.
Discuss. And is there a workflow there of getting out there, writing some articles, this sort of thing? So that's kind of, I thought maybe that's the direction. So whom am I photographically? So I pulled up a few images then.
Yeah.
If you want to, do you want me to share screen, or are you just going to pull them up and have a look?
You can share it if you like. I mean,
Shall I do that?
It's useful for the recording, so we'll have an idea of.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Forgetting that bit, yeah. Not very good radio, is it? The visual. Come on then. Desktop window. No, don't show me that one. Now is this a? Come on. Chrome tab. There we go. Okay. Done it a bit differently. So, can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't necessarily go through all of these at length. They're in a totally random order.
Yeah.
This one, why did I put this one in? This was probably because I really like black and white. I find that very expressive. And this one I took just while out on a walk in France. And this was probably one of the first images that really grabbed me on a little pocket digital compact. And I took the image just because I liked the light in the scene, and I looked at the back of the camera and thought, blimey.
Yeah.
The tonality in it, the range of tones in it, the fact that it could capture that, I hadn't tried to do that at all per se. You know, I tried to take a well exposed image, but actually, whether it's that camera or whatever else, it just beautifully rendered this creamy sort of range of tones from, you know, the whites to the blacks, and I just loved it. And I still love this image for that reason. And to me, that really captures a lot of me in that regard. That beautiful range. It's sort of a high contrast image, and yet there's a full range of tones in there, or at least that's how I'm describing it. And I'm like, absolutely open to you telling me that's the wrong way to describe it. It's more about, you know, something else. But to me, it's I'd say that range of greys in there, and I just really like that. So that, to me, without being a flat image, it's sort of high contrast, but has got all the tonal range in between, and I just really like that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think, you know, when I looked at it, you know, it felt very much. It spoke of your, you know, I know we've talked about black and white a lot in North Yorkshire and, you know, various other places, and you know, on the workshop, across the other workshop as well, and you know, that was the first thing I saw. It spoke of you in that sense. It you know, I can see light and shape and form that you've, again, you know, as you've described yourself, you're an instinctive photographer who sees a moment, who picks the camera up, who's moved to make those pictures. And that, for me, I think, as you say, as well as that kind of tonal range, and the fact that it's what I would term a proper black and white, because it has some degree of white, and it isn't afraid to have black and shadows. You know, whereas you know, I'm very much in the same boat. I like, if something moves across the spectrum like that, that's a proper black and white for me. It has that feel,
right?
Rather than it being kind of wishy-washy and afraid to kind of embrace the shadows. I think the shadows are important. You know, they add to the intrigue and the mystery without analysing the picture too in depth.
Yeah.
But it does feel very much, certainly from the stuff you described to David and I on the sequence as well. You know, when you're talking about those moments and those kind of high contrast and those light and shadow moments that just move you to pick the camera up. So that was absolutely, that felt very much you.
But and I remember taking the image. I remember stood there. I can see myself now looking in that spot, looking at the back of the camera, and looking back at the scene and thinking, That's amazing. It's captured that, because visually I wasn't necessarily seeing that beautiful range of tones.
Yeah.
And I could point the camera and it, exposed slightly more on a trunk or something, and blow out that range a bit, that it didn't quite look the same. And if I just caught it right, and exposed it just right, it would capture this beautiful range. And so that, to me, it was that kind of moment of, wow, if I get this exposure right in a scene, I can capture all of these, this range of tones, and the control and everything. But it was just just that creamy sort of range of greys in it, and yet still having the blacks and whites. And and it makes me feel, the time I look at it, I feel like I could be there.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. That's the really important thing for me, is you can still connect back to that moment. So that, and for a photograph to do that, it means it's an enduring photograph for us.
It is for me. I don't know if it feels or means anything to anybody else looking at it, or is it just a black and white shot of some trees?
And again, these will be things we probably explore further down the line. But again, I think if you link back to the discussions that we had with David, that often, we see photographs ourselves, and our connection to them does differ from another viewer. But this is where the importance of words and of being able to explain, to describe, to almost discuss with somebody who's viewing it, that the things, the motivations, the magic, the elation of the moment. And I think in some ways that's what the photograph on its own, for most people, doesn't do. But where the importance of, whether it be written in a book or whether it be part of a blog or an article piece, I think the words will become important, and I think we'll find over the course of this that maybe words or some form of additional element to embellish the experience, and to capture more of the experience ourselves. And to remember those things. So there'll be all things that we look at. I think a lot of the things that we'll do across the week, some months, we'll be looking at kind of that whole project-based approach, and how it isn't just about the photograph. The photographs are hugely important, but what else do we bring to it?
Yeah. Okay, so look at this one. I think this, to me, just emphasised, it was one of the early shots I took of sort of form and architecture and whatever else. Again, just because it grabbed me, the shapes, the tones. It was in a bit of an art gallery or something in Nottingham, and I just stuck my head in, and the art gallery was over to the right, actually, and I was taking a picture of his stairwell. It's like, but I like that, just for the shape and the forms, the graphic nature, if you like, of it. So I thought that one spoke of me quite well.
Yeah, I agree. And certainly seeing the work that you did on the travel and the underground and stuff, again, that links in very nice. That, as you say, speaks of how that very easily picking out and excited by those graphic elements in the landscape.
This one, be a number of factors, really. It's a sort of more classic outdoor kind of landscapey type shot, which I do like. But again, black and white sort of emphasised that it was a beautiful day, blue sky, but it's, I think, really nice in the black and white rendering. And the white gate down in the corner gives it a bit of balance. So the composition and the balance to it, I'm not sure if that's quite square, but quite like square format as well. So again, I thought that skies are definitely something that grabbed me, and the shapes of clouds in the skies and such like, but mostly just the the amazingness of it, the awe of wow, weather and clouds and big skies. So that one I thought, was worth putting in.
Yeah.
I quite like this one. For me, I love trees, so it sort of picks out a detail of the tree, and it was something I saw, thought black and white. That's just a gorgeous. Like, if I get this right, it'll be low key, and that shot. And I like the way the details come out in the knot, and generally the surrounding blacks and dropping off in the corners and everything. So I quite like that as a sort of moody shot, I suppose. But yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think what's in, again, it brings in those graphic elements that you spoke of in the sharp shapes and bold lines without being sharp shapes and bold lines. It is very graphical. But again, going back to that first picture, it's you're not afraid to go with proper black and white. And again, that's probably speaks of somebody who has an interest in film photography as well. So it's not, you've embraced the deep blacks. It almost reminded me of a close-up of an elephant.
I say it doesn't necessarily have to be a tree.
No.
It could be a shell. It could be a stone.
Funnily enough, I nearly put an elephant in, actually.
It invokes the question. It's. I wouldn't have said that was a tree if you hadn't said so, Matt.
Right.
But yeah, it's magical in that sense, because what it does is it allows the viewer time to wander, time to explore. It has a.
It's got a lot of detail and depth, I think, hasn't it? So you can look around and see all the different shapes and detail in it. And I quite like that. So.
It's got a lot of detail in it. It's a gorgeous picture.
Yeah. Have you printed that one?
No, I haven't. I'm not sure how I would use that one, actually, but it was just one that jumped out at me, and I thought, I could use that one. But how to display it or use it in any series or any discussion or anything, I haven't thought about yet. No.
Yeah, I mean, it may link in certainly reading through some of your ideas and project focuses. That often the individual images and the things that we pick out from our back catalogue, they can be really useful in sort of focusing our mind on a project and different ways that we can approach it. So there may be things we can bring in there.
Yeah. First colour one, if you like, Departure. This one just grabs me. I love the colours in it, the range of colours. And okay, you might just say it's an autumn shot. I love the contrast of the red colours against the green, particularly in the foreground. The sort of strips of colours on the ground and in the trees above. I really like the depth of field that I've managed to grab there. I'm not sure how intentionally I was. I was conscious of the man and his dog and just having them walk into the right position and get the shot. But I think it's I don't like using this word, but it's almost voyeuristic, if you like. But it's the depth of field. It makes you focus down towards the man and his dog.
Yeah.
And make you feel like you're there in a way, because you then lose the focus and the detail in near ground. And I think that and the colours is what really appeals to me. And the form and the composition of the trees and the benches sort of leading the eye down the picture, and it's just very pleasing to me. And the word I actually came up with when I was just thinking about it was peaceful. To me, it's a peaceful moment. So I could look at that again and again and again and just relax and just feel de-stressed by looking at it. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's certainly a picture that certainly to kind of pick upon some of the things David spoke about in the sequence. It's very much one that kind of speaks of our times currently. So the lone person enjoying that solitude and that peace, which at the minute,
Yeah.
and that may be one of the things that I kind of, as you were saying, I've picked these pictures out, and that, they may be a bit dark or maybe a bit sort of, do they speak of me at the moment? But actually, a lot of that might be shaped by where we are and what we've been through and how we're kind of seeing the world. So you're right. The pictures you pick now may differ completely had we not been in lockdown or in 6-8 months' time.
Yeah. So this one, just down in London, I suppose. To me, reason I put this in was I like street photography. I like capturing the moment, as we've kind of talked out, and just observation, just watching people. And obviously, this was a very deliberate act going on to observe. But I like sort of capturing those moments of observation in the street, really. So that was why I put that one in.
It's one of those pictures that asks lots of questions, because we looked at it.
The guy in the Indian feathers looks like Alistair.
Yeah. we were looking at it going, is it some kind of like YMCA flash mob?
It is, yeah. Well, flash mob, yeah. No, it's a guy doing an act, but you got them all up there to do YMCA, like, yeah.
Oh, and it's that kind of, it's only being out and having, again, kind of go back to how David talks about having your mind open to seeing these things happen, especially with street photography, is hugely important, because a lot of people might have walked past it and you've gone and inquired within it using the camera. So that's I think it's an important picture to put in.
I think I showed you this one before. Again, just a reflection of me walking around the corner and going, wow, seeing those graphic elements and just taking the phone and taking a shot. But I still really, really like that one. So again, that's the graphic side of things, really.
Yeah, and again, like you say, it's that instinctive moment.
Yeah.
How the harbour, the road on the wall mural ends right on that line across the travelator.
Yeah.
Oh, blimey! I'd never looked at that before. Yeah.
That is immense.
And it's quite clever, because then you start seeing
that goes all the way across
and joins the right angle of the building coming down.
Yeah.
You then start to, you start looking for lines everywhere, don't you?
And then you've got your vanishing points, and it's just like mind blown, well spotted.
Yeah, slightly unintentional, that one. More just the diagonals into the corners kind of thing. But the striking image of the poster on the wall there with the road in, I think does add quite a lot to that image,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
the fact that you've got that harbour line right on that cross line, that's just
Like I say, I won't take too much credit for that.
we shall hope that the guys who chose where the advertising poster was going, had that level of OCD to actually think of it.
Yeah, but you had to be stood in the right place to get that, Matt. So you do take credit for it. If you'd been stood just one step backwards, they wouldn't have lined up.
Yeah, it is very much about perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I suppose. Again, this one just it was a bit of a nothing shot, but I've converted it to black and white and processed it. But again, it was one that I was running down the street and suddenly just thought, whoa, there's an image there. The reflections off the pavement and the bollards, silver bollards, and it just grabbed me. So I just stopped and pulled the phone out and took it, and then thought, right, that'll be a black and white, and just enhanced it a little bit compared to the sort of shot that it was. But it was great, because I saw it in my mind's eye basically, and took the shot and then created what I'd seen in my mind's eye. So that's worth putting in. Just speaks of the way I work.
Yeah, absolutely. Ironically, I walked down there just yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
I was going rowing, so it's just just off
oh, did you row at the
at the club. Yeah,
side? Yeah.
yeah. And I was running late, but it was like, oh, I've got to take this. So it's only going to take me 10 seconds or something like. Why did I put this one in? Because I really like it, but why do I really like it? Why does it speak of me? Whom am I photographically? It's a film shot in one of the French chateaus, obviously, or whatever we were visiting, and it's just in their loft. And I just really like that oldie worldy wicker chair and the light in that loft. That's really why I put it in. Yeah. The light in there was amazing. You know, it's just daylight into a dark loft, so that contrast of the light was amazing. Like you say, it's kind of a real black and white shot, isn't it? And it's quite aged because of all the the nature of the place and all the furniture in the room, the age of it. So it speaks of a time, and yeah, I really like it. I quite like the composition of it, although I was a bit limited anyway. But yeah, why did I put it in? Whom am I photographing? How does it say something about who I am photographically? It says something because it's a black and white film image, and it's natural daylight, and it's again strong contrast.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Did you? Was that one of the ones you brought up to North Yorkshire that we printed out?
It maybe was. Wasn't
it?
Yeah. So.
And that one, wasn't it?
I did. Yeah, I did this one, and I immediately, when I read your question, this one, and was it the first one? Yes, this one and the first one were the first two into my head.
Yeah.
To include, because I still love this. I still find that really odd because it's just a set of stairs, but the colours are beautiful. The light range is beautiful. The sweeping curves, the redness of it, the framing of it, the composition of it. I just love it. I'm not sure if, like I say, anybody else would. I mean, Christ, even looking at it now, I'm looking at the wall on the right hand side thinking, should that be straightened? But that's how
is it in that sense?
It's not really, I don't think, but I could imagine somebody critiquing it and saying, oh, you need to straighten that, and it'll swivel around, and maybe it'll lose something then. But that's how I took it. I haven't done anything with it. Again, just saw that scene, thought, wow, took the shot, happy with the way the phone's rendered it, really happy with my framing of it and composition, haven't cropped it at all. So got it, as wanted in one. So again, that's another reason for it going in is I saw it, I got it, haven't done anything with it, got it right at the time, get it right in camera, and that's more my thing.
Another well-spotted one. I think that shot wouldn't be half of what it is without that white lamp in the corner.
Yeah.
Do you know, I was just looking at that thinking, oh, I'm not sure I'd necessarily looked at that before, and I'm just thinking, oh dear, should do you not that I go do this particularly, but would anyone else clone that out? But
layman, I don't think I couldn't. It'd look too sterile without it.
Yeah, right. Is it out of place? Does it detract? I don't know. And frankly, like you said about the wall, Rob, it doesn't really matter. The statement is about the curve, the sweep, and the colour, and the range of the light in it. And so the fact there's a white lamp in the corner, I don't think really matters. And if you think it enhances it in any way, brilliant.
Absolutely, and it's an instinctive. I mean, I remember, seeing this in North Yorkshire, and especially when we moved them and placed them, and again, it's a hugely powerful image in that way, and it does speak of instinctiveness and seeing it and getting it right. But the more it's a much more complex image, yeah, because once you see the lampshade, you then see the lines down the left-hand side.
Look at that, it ends right on the end of the step. The middle one ends right on the edge of the step.
So you get those lines that, again, not only do they end in the right places, shall we say, but they also, the shape of those shadows on the left-hand side
mirrors
the lampshade.
Matt, your eyes bonkers. The top one goes out of frame, that's fine. The middle one ends on the end of the step.
Yeah.
The right-hand one ends on the end of the step. The furthest right-hand one ends on the end of the step.
And it's very, it's again, that's all about positioning and instinct. And once you see,
I mean, in that regard,
you might judgment. Even the corner of the walls where it turns the corner, that means almost on the end of a step.
Yeah. I mean, the corridor is about that wide, so I remember just positioning myself, like you say, just to right and capture that as a perspective on the scene, and mostly knowing I didn't want to cut off the top shadow, the top bit. I wanted that to carry on round, so you got that full sweep. I didn't want to cut it off. I wanted it to frame the stairway, and in the same way, I didn't want to clip the step on the left or the banister rail at the bottom. And that's why I haven't done anything more with it, because it's just like, got it, like it. So
just out of curiosity, it's like black and white in it.
Do you know, a friend said that. He said, actually, that might be one that's really good in black and white. Do you know, I never thought about it in colour. And I did try quick conversion. I could almost do that now, I suppose. I'm doing now, is it? And I don't know, it didn't look too bad, I don't think. Maybe that one. Yeah. But to me, I suppose, because I experienced it in colour, then that's what I remember about it, and so that's what it is to me. It's the almost monochrome, it's red, and that's kind of there's bits of orange and obviously a bit of bluey grey in those pictures or whatever, but mostly it's red. And that's what struck me when I walked in there was, whoa, the redness, and then I just thought, what a brilliant light and the shapes, and
it would be a strong colour to chuck away, actually. So I think you're right.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a colour image.
That one to just again speaks of my liking of the natural environment, the detail, the contrast of the colour against the otherwise, if you like, almost black and white, but muddy brown, of the rest of the leaves, the one nice strong coloured leaf, and again, contrast, shape, detail of the droplets and reflections, just like that one. So again, observing detail, that's really what it speaks of for me photographically, and the contrast of colour and shape.
Yeah, and I think it's a very complex image, but again, I think comes down to your eye, that you've actually simplified it quite graphically, which is no mean feat for quite a complex arrangement.
That one, square format, I really quite like square format. I like the composition of it. So for me, it's again speaks of me because of the composition, the shape of the wall and the gate, the left hand, as sort of essential oblongs, the nice moss and detail on the brick, on the stonework of the wall, and the colours of the leaves. So there's a lot of things there, a lot of elements. So kind of a fairly natural shot, out for a walk, recognise where we took it, Rob, and then just the isolation of that bit instead of the wider scene, and the composition of the both gates and the wall, and the colours of the leaves of the trees behind. So again, I find that a very pleasing, restful shot that makes me think of, you know, Yorkshire and going on walking holidays, and the lovely rain colour tones. I find quite soothing, peaceful. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's why that's in. Again, one I took on the workshop, and I've got on the wall after you printed it out. And so being that it's been on the wall and I stare at it most days, I've thought a bit more about why do I like it and what is it. I really like it. It's peaceful to me, soothing. I like the two long lines of the groin, both the groins. They sort of divide up the image a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I realised I quite like the puddles, the wet sand in the sort of upper foreground, fine, but equally the line of puddles that the dog is stood in, and goes back over to the right. They've all got sort of arcuate shapes, so it's actually the shape of those reflections that I think adds to the image. And then Matey and his dog, which, if you stick your thumb over him, just there, I think he really adds to the scene. So it's almost like a natural landscape shot, but the graphic elements of the long lines of the groins, the what's the marker on the end of the groin there? That's quite a splendid, rigid graphic thing within the natural environment. The shapes, the reflections, the deep blacks, and the pseudo panoramic format, which I cropped it to and still enjoy.
Yeah, so, absolutely. It carries on that kind of theme. Well, not a theme, but that kind of way of working that, you're spotting lines and shape and form and elements that grab your interest. And it is good to see that, in the black and white, again, you're not afraid to go black and white properly.
Reflections in that one. I just spotted a few more that I didn't see initially, and it was just like, oh, look. Sorry. Carry on.
Oh, sorry. Not maybe could have chucked this one out. But again, just sort of a bit more sort of a strong, bit more of a shouty image, a loud image. Obviously graffiti, but there's strong graphic lines in it leading to the bloke. Sort of slip canyon, bit of light in the street at the back. So yeah, I like it as an image. It's more unsettling because of the nature of it. Graffiti on a wall, that's not peaceful. I quite like it. And again, it was, I think, a phone shot, just grabbed walking around the city, and thought, yeah, like that, can make some of that. So that's me. This one, I quite like, again, because I saw the shot. I just walking through a park and saw the tree lit at the back and the sort of light almost on the bench. And I've been following a bit of a bench theme. So sort of spotted this bench, but spotted the light at the back and thought, right, if I get the exposure right on this, I want to be able to try to capture those two things and essentially throw the rest of it into deep shadow and make it disappear, so it doesn't detract from those two elements. And hopefully I've more or less achieved that. And again, that was a this black and white film shot. So
I like that. I like the fact that trees almost eating the bench.
Mm.
You've only got one bench.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was trying to work out if so the tree down the middle of the path at the back, I was trying to work out if the branches that come down to the right hand side of the actual sort of kind of main part of the tree itself, is that
a person?
Is that a child striding, or is it actually just the actual branches coming down?
This
it almost looks like legs, doesn't it? And arms going upwards.
It's just the branches actually. I think there wasn't anyone else around. I don't think so. Apart from me and my kids, I suppose. But I don't think that's a person. No.
No, I think you're right. I think it is a tree. But I think
quite how it relates to the other two. It must be something in the nearer distance, I suppose, that's just makes it look. Yeah, don't know. I'll have to have a look at that next time I go for a walk there. But
yeah, it is. I mean, that's. I think, like you're saying, you've worked with the exposure. You've gone with the things that you liked. The light at the back of the tree, the slats, the elements of light. But actually, those kind of shapes, again, that they kind of mirror the feet. That kind of almost humanesque form of the tree down the bottom. Then has elements that mirrors the struts that hold the bench up. So you've got relational elements in there, which are quite interesting. But it's an image that, again, gives you enough space as a viewer to kind of ask questions, to wander around, to start to make your own story up within.
Yeah, it's a bit darker and a bit more mysterious, I suppose, in a way, rather than it all just being lit and detailed and you just, it's a shot of a bench and some trees, but it's just to emphasize, like I say, this almost spotlight effect on that bench, really, and the trees being lit in the background just really just balanced it out, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And this one is an odd shot maybe, but again, it was just, lockdown, going bananas maybe, but I thought, well, come on, there must be images to make just when you're stuck at home still, just keep an eye out for them. And then one day I just walked past here and the light was flooding in through the window in the utility, and again the range of tones, the light in the situation, I just thought, oh wow, look how it's lighting the washing machine door, and I just thought, right, grab my phone with black and white, and I thought, I know what this will be. And it came out really nicely. I still really like it, and yeah, it's obviously a shot of my utility, but the range of tones in it I really like.
Yeah, and again,
I like the door,
Yeah, that I think what you've picked up on is, you're moved by those moments of magic in terms of light appearing, and that's what it's about. It almost transcends the subject matter.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good way of describing it. Thank you. Yeah, it does completely transcend the subject, because it was just a beautiful day, but it was just beautiful the way it was streaming in through the window and capturing everything and the range of tones. So I don't know if I would dare do anything with that per se, but again, just for our conversation, I thought that says something about me photographically, so I threw it in.
Yeah.
The washing machine door, actually, if you took just that circle, it actually looks like a wire wool doodah. When you set the wire wool on fire
and spin it. I think
which it actually wouldn't have looked like when you took the picture, which is really bizarre.
I think it's interesting that you sort of say that, whether I'd do anything with them. I think that's quite an interesting thing, actually, that you've spotted this at home within, trying to force yourself to make images and, and to look deeper throughout lockdown sort of thing in a way.
Yeah.
And it has, and again, that one, it shows us what is available under our noses often that we don't see. But again, it could be an image that quite easily becomes a catalyst for, I don't know whether you've been reading any of John Blakemore's blogs.
No.
So I'll send you in the OneNote notebook. I'll put some links into his blogs. He did a series of 7 blogs through lockdown.
Okay.
And they were very much about the light and how John works and how John's worked for many, many years. Is he very much, he's mesmerized by the light, and he hasn't, apart from the residential last year where he worked with us on the workshop, he hasn't made photographs outside of his house for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
Yet he sees magic through light streaming in through a net curtain and a shadow that is played on the wallpaper, and a shadow that's cast from a fruit bowl, and the light capturing on the side of a very mundane kind of glass and a spoon. And this very much kind of in that sense does kind of give me that kind of reminiscence of how John sees the light. So I'll give you probably find it quite an interesting set of articles, actually.
Right, thanks. Yeah.
From a catalyst point of view, then John then goes on, and he'll not make one. He'll perhaps, once his brain's sensitized to seeing these things around the home, he might make 10, 15, 20, and he'll start to think, well, an image that you maybe wouldn't think you give out to the world to stand on its own, but actually within the context, a little bit like how we're doing on the sequence, within the context of a body of work, all well visioned, all well seen within the same environment or similar environments, work very well. And it also reminds me a little bit, I don't know if you remember at Connected, I think it was last year, Lucy Saggers did a talk, and she photographed in North Yorkshire, and she photographed a lot of old tradesmen, so blacksmiths, farriers, you name it, all manner of different old tradesmen, and they were very much black and white photographs, but very much about moments.
Press the wrong thing.
There you go. And they were
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And they were about those moments of sort of transient light. So it might also be worth having a look at.
Lucy Saggers.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to. She did a whole project and a book on, and I think it was around some of the dying trades of North Yorkshire. But that does give me a very reminiscent feel of that.
Yeah, I tried. I thought, I'll try cropping it and crop out some of the extraneous, messy detail and stuff. But it seemed to. I mean, I didn't spend too long poring over that, but it seemed to. I was like, no, it's better with all the mess in it, all the light on the bike on the left and stuff. It just, it just sort of balanced off some of the elements of the image. So I couldn't crop it to make it anything more than it was, sort of thing, or to make it look better or anything. It seemed, even though it's showing all the mess in my utility, it kind of actually added to the picture on the whole. So
Absolutely.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, now that I've talked through them on the whole, happy that certainly captures a lot of what I am photographically, if you like. So I'm sure there are other elements and things maybe if you thought about it, but on the whole, that's a reasonable start. And I suppose there was a very common running theme through a lot of that. So
yeah, absolutely. And absolutely, I think sometimes you kind of being careful not to do yourself a disservice for how you see the world. And actually, because that's in a way is the most important thing to embrace, because it's quite easy for any of us to go out and make classic landscape shots or photos that meet certain criteria that would other people would deem to be successful in their sense. But I think being comfortable to explore the moments that inspire you is much more important. And I think certainly done that there. And they, and they do tell me a lot more about you as a photographer than maybe a selection of, very well-made landscape photographs. We had a similar discussion on the last, the most recent sequence workshop we've just finished with one of the participants, who was an absolutely, technically, a fantastic photographer. But the pictures that they brought to us didn't speak of them. And there was a disconnect in a way. A little, I don't know if you remember a little bit, sort of, to the sequence workshop, to Hillary's work, which was around that park in Grantham. Now, how she spoke in session 1 about, what was important to her and what really fired her up, didn't necessarily translate into the pictures until the very end. And then she really focused in, and we had a very similar participant who made stunningly technical photos, but they didn't relate to what they told us and so passionately talked about. Whereas what yours do in that sense, and they are, again, they are very well made photographs, but they do say a lot more about how you see the light and what moves you and why you make a photograph. So in a way, understanding that through picture making now is probably the more important thing than necessarily going out and sort of making technically beautiful pictures of the Lake District or X. I can imagine, in Ardnamurchan, that you'll be looking for your story, which is those moments that inspire, that make you lift the camera, that make you go wow, as you've said. So that's what we need to harness and continue to reflect on as we work forward. And hopefully what we'll do through each project, so how we'll sort of work, is we have a series of 4-5 mini projects that you can interpret in any way which you like.
Right.
So it's very much about you interpreting them in your way and how you want to make photographs, how you want to see the world. It's not necessarily, they're not designed as kind of genre or necessarily thematic projects. It's very much interpretive to allow. They'll also allow you to work both instinctively, but will fit in around what we're doing,
right,
and around what you're doing. So you hopefully you won't feel that I've got to get out to X or Y to make a photograph. Actually, as you've just shown us with that photograph in your utility room, that you see those moments, and hopefully when you've had a read of John's blog, there'll be some things that echo with how you see the world there, and hopefully that will reinforce that. So
right,
it's very much over the coming weeks and short few months before we get into the main body of the personal project. It's very much about really exploring and making the photos for the mini project, but not fearing that it has to be. It doesn't have to be an adventure. You don't have to go somewhere to make photographs. So they're all things that are very much open for you to interpret. And to be able to make photographs that fit in with your life, which is actually, like I say, it's as important as necessarily being able to go somewhere stunning and make photographs, because I think, again, I go back to some of the things David said where he was talking about the more we understand about how we decode and see the world and what fires our imagination, the not so much luckier we become, but the more open to seeing we are when we go to interesting places.
Right.
So yeah, very much over the coming weeks, it's about the practice and the process of making photographs that both embody your way of seeing and reinforce that and continue to explore that. And in the sessions, it'll be very much, as we come back each session, we'll talk about the mini project that you've worked on. We'll talk through the photographs. There'll be kind of tangents that we can bring in. There'll be additional reading. But what I want you to think about, and this Word document's fantastic for that, because you've got a big long list of potential projects as well.
Yeah, it was just relatively random ideas. Some of the things that just came across my mind, thinking, maybe that might be context for a project or something like that. So.
And this will be useful because, as I say, most of the mini projects are very much they're open to interpretation. So you could very much use some of these as part of that exploration. Over the course of the mini projects, it's really what it's about building up towards is thinking about the process of coming up with an idea for a project that we can actually then spend the second half of the 6 months focused solely on exploring, refining, coming back to some of the things that you wanted to develop, but developing them very much on a project that you've shaped, that you've had the idea for, and we'll then start to see that through. I'm not saying at the end of 6 months that you'll necessarily get to the end. So Fiona, I'm just wrapping up with this month. I imagine that she's probably got another 2 to 3 months worth of work that she's going to do, but she's very much through the discussions we've had, through the things we've explored. She's in a position where she knows where it's going, which is important. What we are going to be is flexible and reactive enough that, if in doing one of the mini projects or through the discussions that we have, because it is going to be important that I think, Anna, I was quite heartened to hear you say the process of talking about photographs is something that you're passionate about. And I think that will be, that's where we develop the understanding in a way, not only of the photographs that we make, but also the photographs that we like, that others make. So what there will be with each mini project is there'll be a set of links, so a bit of reading, some other people who've explored something similar or broadly looked at a similar theme as an example. So again, that gives us something to come back to as well at the end of the sessions. But it's very much, we are going to be flexible enough, really, that what I'd like to get to is the things that are important to Matt are the things that we're going to shape into your personal project. So that form the development, the discussion points, the continuation. And so, if I link that then back to some of the things you've put, how do I express myself? So it's then thinking about, well, how do we lift such a project? onto, do we put it onto a gallery? Or on a gallery? Do we actually have a dedicated part of the website which not only do we have the images, but has words, that has blog posts that talk about the ideation process? So hopefully what we'll also find in doing that the OneNote notebook that we'll co-construct together, that you've already put some stuff in, which has been brilliant, that should also prove to be a little bit of a resource for you in terms of when we're on that kind of second 3 months and we're looking at your project. We may start at the beginning where we're looking at the ideation and how we're going to explore it and getting out and making images. But as we start moving through, we're then thinking about, well, what's the output for this project? How do we bring it onto a blog? Where are the words coming through? Where are the thoughts coming through? Are there other things we need to bring in? Do we need audio? Do you need video? What other things might you capture as part of a way of communicating who you are as an artist or as a photographer or somebody who hugely busy, works, has family, and photography, as you rightly point out, is that moment of downtime, of joy and expression and peace and solitude. And in a way, that's potentially where a mixture of the project and how you decide, or how we shape and how we decide you're going to output it in some way to the world, actually that's going to be important to sort of say, not just the photos, but maybe we are talking about the process and the being as a photographer as much as just the photos. And that, for me, will be where, in that sense, where people will connect with Matt as the image maker. People will start to understand your images because of the depth of what makes them, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you. That captures it, I think, really well. That's exactly what I'd like it to be about. Yeah. I mean, if you took that superficially, you could some of what I wrote in the Word document, I sort of reread it to myself and thought, well, just asking him for help to develop a website, but it's not. It's about expressing myself and having ways of doing that and getting engagement, but to allow, like you say, me to express it in a way that I'm struggling to do, clearly, and that's why I think writing in words is probably a really important component of it. That helps me. I like writing on the whole, and I think it adds to the understanding of an image.
Yes, absolutely agree. And hopefully you'll, and again, I dip back into how I kind of framed the sequence workshop. It was that we weren't teaching people to sequence per se. We were helping people understand the possibilities and the options and the processes so we could develop a toolkit. And in a way, this is going to be very much the same. We're going to use the mini projects will be part of the building up, but the personal project, where we very much work together and focus together and think and develop your ideas and understanding, is very much about that one personal project is just a case study in essence. So you can hopefully by the end of it, you'll come away with a toolkit where you've been able to express yourself that you can then apply to the next body of work that you might want to move on to. And hopefully the other thing's important, and the thing I've picked up is, both from discussions and what you've written, etc., is that we accept life is busy.
Sorry.
And we fit things in sometimes, but actually hopefully what you'll see by the end of the 6 months is that actually, as a means to keep the creative muscles going and the vision going, and to still have those moments of downtime, even if it's only an hour a week or a couple of hours spread out, is that actually just having a little mini project on the go every so often might just be the thing that allows you, in a way, to go from somebody who goes out and makes and enjoys making images and enjoys that moment. But I got the feeling you didn't see yourself as somebody who completes things the other end of it. And I'm just as guilty a lot of the time. So I put all my projects down in books, knowing that, or in a notebook, and I will come back to them, because if I don't write them down and I then don't pick one to photograph or to focus on, inevitably I'll be that involved doing either the teaching or the other stuff that we do, that I won't complete stuff. So I have to, in a way, it's accepting that sometimes that we don't have to, especially as a personal project or a personal photography on a personal level, that we don't have to complete it in a set amount of time either. You could have something that this is just your, whenever you can get a free hour or a free few hours, that you're able to continue to explore, with the acceptance that it might be 5 years down the line before you have a body of work that forms out of it. But it will be the process of doing it that becomes both the meditation or the well-being side of things, but also the personal development. But I think documenting it along the way. So I'm glad you picked up on the kind of and shared the website and looking at what you've done already. I think documenting it along the way, initially as a means to communicate back, as David, again, I'll go back to David, but as he said about talking to oneself. So I think once we feel comfortable talking to ourselves about what we're thinking, about what we're doing,
Yeah.
and that's often where a blog starts out. I know a lot of people who blog, not just photography, but education, all manner of things. And it's a personal thing in the first instance.
Yeah. Well, that's what mine is.
Yeah, maybe for 2 or 3 years it sits as a personal thing. But once you get to a stage where you're really comfortable talking to yourself and you can see where you're going, I actually think I'll share that, because actually there's value in that for other people. And it's not necessarily measuring yourself and saying, well, will somebody see value in this one photograph? But it's, will they see value in what you're writing as the journey? And, that cliched word that I know I used it quite a few times, but it is important. It's, and I think it's just iteratively developing and building up.
So what do you want me to do over the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks then? And what resources am I going to need, Rob, for this process? So at the minute, like I say, I've been using Capture One, and unfortunately I ended up installing it to fix a problem. With our computer systems at the minute, I'm not allowed to reinstall it because I can't have personal software. So I might have to get a new computer to be able to use Capture One or Lightroom, or I don't know how Lightroom works, whether I can, because it's web-based, whether that's fine and I can just use that and move to that. But partly, obviously, I purchased a version of Capture One, so partly I'm familiar with that at the minute, or, well, not that familiar, but I've used that. So at the minute, I've got no photo processing software, but like I say, I'm happy to trial Lightroom or something, maybe, if that helps. But just going forward, you've talked about printing stuff out before, obviously on the workshops and things. So what resources am I going to need?
Yeah, so essentially, really, what you'll need, I wouldn't worry too much about which software you go with. So if you've paid for Capture One, unless you really want to look at Lightroom and its offerings, if Capture One works for you, I use them both. So I'm, if we do need to talk about any technical things, then you do get some processing capability throughout the workshop. Just go whichever one works for you best. Essentially, all you really need is the ability to go out, was the ability to make some images.
Yeah.
So whatever camera you choose, and that may vary within a single project or across different projects. It's whichever feels most right for you on a given mini project, and even on your own personal project for that kind of 3-month period. It could be a mixture of kit. So I wouldn't worry about what. It's something to make pictures.
Right.
Other resource that will be really useful, probably a scrapbook. You may still have the one from North Yorkshire. I don't really, I can't remember whether I used to give them out. I think we still do on and off. If not, don't panic. Just something from Wilco's
Yeah, that's fine. Notebooks and scrapbooks, that's fine. I can.
Yeah. Essentially, although we're using we've got OneNote to capture our, we're putting things down in, we'll have it documented it. You might find the scrapbook really, really handy just for, if you can, even if it's just printing them out on a cheapo office printer at home, a little 30 quid office jet jobby. They don't have to be end prints, shall we say. It's often about just being, as you're working on things, being able to print a few off just onto cheap paper and pop them in and scribble your thoughts on and around them, and start to make, a little bit like we did on the sequence, start to make linkages, but not so much linkages in a thought process of the series, but really just about how they may start to form a project or work to a brief. So a photo maker, so a camera, phone, whatever you go with, scrapbook, some means of printing, even if it's just, like I say, the big print scanner copy at work and 6 to a piece of A4 paper printed out really cheap, but so you can use them for note making purposes. Your phone will be hugely important to you in terms of, obviously, whilst it doesn't only make photographs, but you can
voice notes, physical notes.
Yeah, so you can write notes, you can talk into it, you can capture video, you can capture field sounds when you're out. So your phone will be a really good hub. And I think that'll become much clearer as we start to work through.
Can you get Capture One on your phone?
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Yes.
Just thought.
Capture One mobile has not come out yet.
Yeah. And essentially just obviously not all the time, but just access to the internet for these sessions. Beyond that, you can grow your resource. They're the only really essential resources.
Okay.
And it's about the other things you can pull in as and when you require and you might need. So you might think, oh, I could do with X for this project, and there'll be things that come to mind when we do it.
Okay.
But the scrapbook, for me, does form a really central part because it's a little bit more, as you're making notes now, you're not typing them into OneNote. You've got that kind of real interactivity of human and pen and book, and it embeds the thought process.
Yeah.
Great place to start mind maps, things that may then transition into blog posts. So it's all, the scrapbook could well become quite not just images and words, but it could be stuff that then starts to feed the web.
becomes a tool almost.
Yeah.
Workflow.
Yeah. Hugely powerful in that sense. In terms of one book, I can't remember whether you said you had it when we chatted on the sequence first catch up, but certainly linked to how you see and thinking about light and shadow and instinct and moment. There's a book by John Sikowski called The Photographer's Eye. It's 12 or 15 quid on Amazon, I think, at most.
Okay.
It dates back a little bit. It's full of images. Essentially, they're all black and white, but there's a number of essays in it where Sikowski talks about the essence of photography and how we frame, why we make images, that's as a way, just as a means to kind of, I think that will help you understand a little bit more about how and why you work.
Right.
And hopefully it will give you the confidence to realize that actually my instinctive way of working is is on the right track.
It's actually $13.99 on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. The black and white photography in it is beautiful.
Right.
There's some amazing stuff in it. But certainly the essay in it and Sikowski's.
They've been
SZARKOWSKI.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you spell that again, please?
SZARKOWSKI. John, yeah, what Rob said.
Yeah, I was thinking, I remember you talking about that on the sequence, but actually, I think I remember them talking about it on the on Landscape podcast. I think Joe Cornish was talking about it on there with the other two. They kept talking about John Sikowski, I think, on there.
Yes. Yeah.
That in particular, I think. So.
And another really good book, and again, it's a really easy read. They're both things you could take on holiday quite easily and wouldn't demand too much time reading. The other one is Ways of Seeing by John Berger.
John Berger?
Yeah, Berger. Again, that's probably about £8.
£6.89.
Yeah.
On Prime.
Ways of Seeing.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a PDF for
it's actually a Penguin classic.
It is. Indeed. It focuses on, a lot of it focuses on paintings, but it's very much about how we see and how we visually see and compose and make sense of.
Right.
And it is absolutely one of the underpinning sort of bedrocks of photography in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put the link into the PDF as well, but if you prefer the tactility of having a book in your hand, then it is cheap.
Still a bit old school that way. So.
Yeah, so I'll say what I'm going to do with each project, I'll put some resources in, so there'll be web links and this, that, and the other. Yeah. I'll put the one for you to focus on over the coming weeks in the project section. Essentially, what it is, it's for you to embrace whilst you're away, but actually not take up too much time. It's about creative walking, so it's essentially building on what you do, how you instinctively react to the world. So it's just learning a little more from actually how you think. You just snap. So when you're out on holiday, you might just be walking with the kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a photo outing, and that's it. That's the important thing in that sense. But it's about just allow yourself to make some photos whilst you're out that will be instinctively driven. They don't have to link. They don't have to tell a story per se. But they will form a story of a walk in that sense, because it'll be how you've interacted, how you've interfaced, what you felt about the world, the immediate world around you, and who you were with when you were on that walk, because you know certain things inspired you to pick the camera up and make photos. It's quite an easy one, but to do, like I say, once you're out, don't set yourself any constraints. So don't go with any preconceptions that I must make photographs of X, Y, or every so often. Get the kids involved. Let them shape the route where you walk, and so it becomes the excitement of the mystery of you weren't quite sure where you were going. And again, this could be something if you don't get the chance to get away that you can do locally as well.
Yeah.
And again, it might be walking somewhere that you are very familiar with, but seeing it differently because you're trying to understand just photograph what it is that catches your eye on any given day.
Okay.
You can do this as many times as you want, once, twice, 3 times, whatever, over the next sort of 3 weeks.
Right.
When you get back home, if you do get a chance to go away, that hopefully will be the time where you can deconstruct it a little bit. So where you can kind of have a look at them and think about, just jot a few notes down. It might be just print them out and drop them in your scrapbook and write some notes about what photographs did I make, I wonder why I made that, how was I, how was I feeling, what mood was I in, what was going on around me, what was it noisy, were there lots of animals, were there road noises? As unrelated as they may sound, they're very much that kind of whole thing, that's everything that's going on around us very much shapes how we interface with the world. It's very much in that sense, it's embracing psychogeography, that whole kind of understanding how any place, wherever it may be, makes you feel, and then using that to create. I'll pop you some links in. I've already got the readers set aside in a folder, so I'll pop you them into the notebook as well. There's a little bit of a reader on the concept of psychogeography, so the thing that underpins the creative walk. I'll also pop you in a link to a web gallery I've put up. So as an example, one I did on holiday 2 years ago. And that was literally just walking down a lane at the side of the cabin where you've stayed in North Yorkshire.
Right.
Past old Dot's cottage and following it round through the woods and doing a circular walk. And I went through the same process. I made photographs, which then notionally just became known as a little project called Joining the Dots, because I was joining connections along the route linked, and I used the term dots obviously because the lady who lived in the house was called Dot. So it really is just a way of seeing that when you go out, that we often we're told by magazines, etc., that photography has to be this huge grand thing, and we're going out to do grand vistas or sunsets or sunrise, but actually what this feeds forward into doing is really just underpinning how you instinctively react to the world. And the sort of couple of weeks when you get back home before we next catch up will really be about deconstructing it too much, but just by maybe popping a few of them in a book or having them in a web gallery or on your computer. You can just look at them and go, yes, I made connections, or I thought these were the things that captured. Why did they capture me? So it's very much really focusing on what we've talked about tonight. So it's photographing your way instinctively, but we'll use this as a means to understand it a little bit more.
Okay, that was going to be partly my question. So, what we're going to do with them, why, how we're going to do it, but it's a means of understanding my reactions to things. Then.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like I say, I'll put a link up to my joining the dots kind of
Yeah.
mini project. And it may be that when you've gone out and you've photographed them, that they do become, it could become a blog piece and you write about it and it's about a linear or a circular walk. So it could form not just a thing that helps you understand a little bit more about your way of seeing and decoding the world and reactive to it instantly, but it could become a thing in its own right, a little mini project that you sit up as a blog post on the website, and this both writing about it and sequencing the pictures, and that the sequence in this sense may be governed by the linearity of the walk. Who knows? You may get them back, you may look at them and actually think that, oh, actually, I'm actually going to organize them into color blocks or thematic blocks. There isn't a right and a wrong. It's really about what we learn from the process, and if we can make something out of it as well that has some writing to accompany it, that maybe explains to ourselves in 3, 4, 5 months' time what it was all about, what we learned from it, but also maybe somebody else could learn something from that as well.
And by understanding why I'm taking the images, my reactions to things better, that helps in what way? How am I going to then end up using that? What's the, just thinking ahead, what's the journey, as you say?
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely spot on question. Essentially, so by being able to understand a little bit more about why you pick the camera up at any given moment, helps us then once we go out to make photographs specifically. It makes us more aware of the possibilities because we know what fires us, what inspires us, why we pick the camera up. That then allows us to think, well, actually, if I'm doing this mini project, or if you've got on to the 3 months, the back 3 months of this mentoring where you're working on the personal project, it will then allow you to think, well, do I go out at X time of day to X place, or in X light? So that kind of understanding what it is that fires you allows you, one, to be quite strategic in planning when you go out, where you go out. Two, it allows you, once you're in the field, and again, I think this is something we talked about with David on the sequence course, the more you understand about why you pick the camera up at any given moment, the more open you are to seeing those moments. And I think that was evident, in terms of looking at your stuff you did on your traveling, that kind of literal liminal zone, that actually, although we were looking at it retrospectively, when you're out there, the thing as you walk around the corner, wow, its shape, its graphic, its form. So you become quite sensitized to that. So once you're out somewhere, it may be a really untidy woodland, as you then start to think, well, what helps me see and decode these places, shape, graphic, and form? Where do they exist here? So again, just through that understanding, you're building your skill set. You're making yourself more aware when you're on location. So hopefully, then you feel like it's what we're not doing is losing the instinctiveness, but what we are doing is maybe increasing the opportunity to make images.
Okay. Presumably, it'll make me better than able to design a project in the first place.
Yeah.
To know what the possibilities are, to think, right, okay, I can focus a body of work or a message or a narrative through a set of images aligned in this way, you know, because I've thought about this and I've become more aware to these things and think, right, I would like to do a set of images that essentially discuss this aspect, whether that be, you know, light or politics or what it be, you know.
Yeah, it's essentially it is through that understanding of why you make photographs and how you make photographs. The thing we do instinctively without question, as you say, you pick the phone up, you knew you wanted it or you picked the camera up and you knew you wanted the exposure, but you were still all the other stuff, the composition, the moment that made you pick the camera up, that was just instinctive. But actually, as you say, they feed forward and you're thinking, well, if I'm going to do a project and I choose to work locally within my own village or whatever, what are the opportunities that will present themselves based on how I work and my strengths? And what do I need to do to give myself the best opportunity of sort of enhancing that, you know?
Yeah.
Thus, if I'm looking for strong contrast and shadow and moments of kind of quite strong elements, you wouldn't necessarily go out when it's pouring down with rain and grey and flat and dull. But what you might find over the mini projects as we lead up to it, that as well as the things that are already how you make photographs, that in doing some of the other projects as well, the mini projects, you might think, actually, although going out and photographing either in the rain or the mist, or maybe wandering around, you know, wouldn't class it my own village as street photography, for example, but actually if I approach it in my way with my strengths, then actually that's how it starts to make sense to the body of work I'm trying to bring together. Yeah, it's very much about, in a way, you reflect back to feed forward, and just it becomes quite continual. That, as I say, that's really where the scrapbook is hugely important, because there will inevitably be times where you go out for a wander with the camera and there's just nothing that inspires you, or nothing, you're not in the right mood, it doesn't work that day, and to come back and just maybe throw a few notes down on one photo that didn't work, and to understand why it didn't work for you that day. What was it that wasn't working for me? You know, that kind of reflection on what was good and what was bad then gives us, the next time we have a down day, it gives us more opportunity to think, right, I'm not feeling it today. Is it worth going out, or could there be something more beneficial? That so do I go back through the scrapbook and do I look at the images I've already got? Do I go back through my images that I'm building into this portfolio of stuff that I'm working forward, and do I spend the time sequencing them, or put them in sets, or doing some writing around one photograph? So it's about knowing when to make photos and when to do something else that's equally as important to the project.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that won't make a lot of sense until we get going.
No, it makes perfect sense. I suppose I'm partly just thinking, right, okay, that's quite a lot of what I do already, but then it's not the reflective stuff. That's I don't give myself the opportunity to sit down and really think about these things, why I took the images and such like. And so, just in answering these couple of questions you've asked me, that's been an interesting process in itself. So I think I know the answers mostly for what drives me and everything else, but I understand them a bit more instinctively, and rather than understanding them fully and clearly, I think. And so I can appreciate that the reflective process will give me a much better insight into that and help me express that better, because it will just give me thinking time to formulate the words and everything else. And even just talking through those images, you know, that's quite enjoyable. And you know, I find that enjoyable, and I find myself then coming up with some words that I find happier with to express what I'm trying to say about those images. So giving myself some time to sit down and look over some of my images and think about them and write some notes how I have taken them. I mean, essentially that's what the blog was, or it is, or, you know, but equally I've sort of got to a point where, one, I've just not made the time, and two, got to a point where I've thought, well, I feel like I'm starting to force it almost, you know, find a photo to say something about, and that wasn't really what I wanted it to be. It was this organic expression of me talking about the images, not, and here's another one I like, you know, and it's like, I'm not trying to do that really. So what am I trying to do, you know? So I can appreciate that actually giving myself the time then to have a reflective part of the process, which is in essence part of what I said I'm rubbish at doing, is using my photos after the fact. You know, I take them, I think I know why I like them, but I don't do anything with them, and that includes sitting down and thinking thoroughly about them. I'll think a bit about them, that's why I like them, but other than that, I haven't come up with, you know, some words to express what that is and why, and talked it through with anybody. So
and that will be, I mean, that will be something that evolves. You know, the thing I always say to people about blogging and talking about images and is, you know, I think you've made the initial step, which is important, is that you've actually started to throw your thoughts down. A lot of people don't, because of that fear that, well, I don't know whether I can express myself properly yet, so I won't do it at all. Whereas in a way, it's seeing not just the photographs as evolutionary, but also how you talk about them. And your first writing versus maybe writing in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 2 years' time, they'll be vastly different, but they'll mark important points along the process. And there will always be important things to come back to. So hopefully what we'll have over the focus of 6 months is the drive and impetus to, one, get out and make new photographs and not necessarily worry that they aren't in, you know, exotic locations or places where you would traditionally see photographs, as, or the magazines would tell you where photographs are made. So it's about going out and we're going to go out and make photographs, and we're going to do it regularly. So hopefully that's the one thing that will benefit. But then we'll, as you say, we'll reflect, and we'll do that regularly. Well, then through that reflection, that will allow us to build this toolkit, which will help you. Then we'll bring them together. We'll stop and think, well, maybe those 6 or 7 images, that's the blog post about, you know, development, thought processes. This 12 images, that's a gallery for the website. You then might say, well, there's 40 images here, that's a book. You know, you then start to see the opportunities.
Right.
And it's, and often we won't know what they are until it's about taking it quite organically, as you say, and just developing the continuation of the discussion and coming back, but keeping it regular and often. So we're making the images, we're discussing, you're reflecting, we're feeding forward to the next phase, but it's all with a mind on actually, you know, in a way, the first 2 2.5 months of the session of the mentoring is feeding very much forward to. So it's having something in your mind about, well, what could my personal project be that I'm going to do? All right.
Yeah, there's loads of little squitty nut things coming in.
I'm just going to pull the window too because we're about to be eaten by flies.
Right.
Little squit nutty things. Sorry, Matt.
All right.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives. I said the answer in a way. The answers they'll become clearer as we progress.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very much about building blocks and developing.
Yep.
I'll be flexible enough. If you through doing one mini project, I've always wanted to know a little bit more about X or Y, and we'll capture those, and we'll see where we can feed them into what we're doing moving forward. So we won't miss anything.
Right.
But it's all about it's about using a framework but make it very personalised.
Okay.
Hopefully, as I say, I've left the first project for you quite a loose one. So just something you can do whilst you're away, or if you don't get away with them.
Read. I like the sound of those 2 books you mentioned. Read, photo walks, reflect on images, and that's largely where we've got to. Yeah. And, 1 or more walks basically, but reflecting on the images and a bit of reading around as well. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you'll know yourself what feel. I mean,
yeah.
I think at the time when I did the one I'll share with you tomorrow in the project folder, the joining the dots one, I actually sat and made a very simple at the end of the week. Out on the veranda of the cottage of the cabin in Liverton, I actually made a simple stab-bound book. And literally just bought some, card from Hobbycraft or somewhere and some waxed thread, and literally just put the photos on. I found an old map in a charity shop in the area and I cut that up. So I didn't set out to do that. All I knew I was going to do, I wanted to go out on a walk and make some photographs that were about the walk and what inspired me at the time. And hopefully you'll see from the photographs, you'll see there is that sense of it was photographing what captured. But actually, what I will do is I'll dig the book out and photograph it at some point before we go away. So you can actually see that although something might only be an exercise of walking creatively, that actually you can still make something out of it if you wanted.
Right.
So, and that might just be a simple thing of not necessarily a physical book. It could just be a PDF ebook or something with a few words. I think once you've made the images, you'll know if there's something to put them together to. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is the making and the reflection as to why we did what we did.
And how often are we going to meet, chat, or?
Yeah. Well, I say holidays aside, what I normally aim for is to give you a couple of weeks between sessions.
Okay.
Because obviously, if we meet too often, it doesn't give you time to develop your ideas and your thoughts around work and family. So does 2 weeks work for you normally?
Yeah. No, that sounds good, Rob. Thanks.
I was thinking this first one, obviously, because you're away and we're away.
Yeah.
Is popping an extra week on. So make the first one 3 weeks.
Yeah, sounds about right, because you said you were away, Mike, as well. So
yeah, we go. Let's have a look. Find where. So we go this Thursday evening, and then we're away the preceding 2 weeks. So I think we're possibly coming back either on Sunday the 30th or Monday the 31st. So
that's fine. That works, well for me if it works for you. I'm away and then back, and I've got a few days looking after the kids before they go to school, but that gives me some time as well when I'm not working, so that's good. That'll be reflection time a bit as well.
Yeah.
And then if you're up for it that week of the 31st, we can meet then.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we want to, what do you want to do? Meet sort of similar time one evening that week?
Yeah. I mean, this time works well for me if it's all right for you, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it worked very well. What day of the week works better for you?
I don't think I have any massive preference there.
Yeah,
I can be flexible. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to flick forward on my calendar.
Yeah, I think it's really what you have in your schedule.
Well, that week at the moment, I've got nothing in any evening, so.
Okay.
So I'm good all evenings that week.
We'll put something down then.
Yeah, it's good. I think it'd be good to put the session in, and what I'll do is I'll send you a Teams invite. I mean, if you want, if you want to use the booking thing again, the link I sent you, and just book in, have a think about it in the next few days, and just book one.
Okay.
The evenings are in there in that calendar, so just grab the one that works.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll have a chat with Karine and see. But yeah, I think assuming we don't have anything particularly pressing, which I don't think we will have, I'll do it, mid to late that week, and that gives you a chance to get your head together when you get back, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, that's cool. As I say, if there is, the important thing is if I am around, even if we're away, we're not going a million miles. So if you do need to bounce an email, ideas, quick phone call or whatever, don't be afraid to just give me a call.
And otherwise, we can use OneNote to just write a few notes down.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So you've got tabs in here of projects, Matt's notes, and resources.
So the projects one, basically what I'm going to do, so that where it's currently on title page, this will be where I put the first thing, the creative walking project. So I'll put a bit of a brief in there.
Right.
With some links to the kind of reading on psychogeography, and a link to my gallery on my sort of creative walk as an example. And then I'll add an extra tab each project so that they'll appear there. The section is obviously where we'll sort of capture the thoughts that we feed back in ahead of the session, so it's where we can discuss. Matt's notes, you can use that is your little memory dump. So it may even be how Kirsty, who I mentored a year or so ago, she literally photographed a scrapbook that she was doing, and she dropped that in there.
Okay.
Just so we got that. Right.
Okay, so I can just use that for any interesting bits and pieces, really.
Yeah, or even if you read an article on the web and you go, this could this form quite a linked discussion to 1 week to what we're doing? Drop it there, and we can use it as a starter sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was partly what I was thinking. Was if I see something interesting, I think, oh well, that's a useful podcast talking about something or other. I might put a note in there, and if you've got a chance to have a listen or see what you think, or we can have a discussion around it next time. Or
I mean, that's the important thing, that we use it, and it's about generating the discussion and the process. And the final section, the resource section, is just really anything, and that might be web links, it might be links to specific things. So you'll notice the first thing in the resources section is something called Google Tour Builder. It's something that's been in beta for quite a number of years. It's you might find it really interesting and useful to use. It basically works on the map module of Google, but it allows you to put photographs, videos, and words, notes on a map and have them linked and sort of set a linearity to it.
Okay.
I've used it quite a lot at the university with students, so we found it really handy on sort of projects and documenting ideas and thought processes. It might be something to have a dabble with around this first creative walk. So one, it gives me a visual of where you've walked beyond the photos from that kind of map perspective.
Yeah.
And two, you might find that it's quite handy. You know, you quite like the way that it works. There's a tour on there anyway. You can view.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, it's quite handy. And it may be something that you show the kids and go, "Oh, we've used that at school."
Yeah.
And then they may have really good ideas of what you could do. But you know, it might be quite a good digital kind of map-based scrapbook for your final project if you need the map as some kind of underpinning or at least memory of the project.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Great.
Cool. So I will send out so my action is to send out or put in the project session, the first one, pop in the brief. I'll pop you the links we've talked about. And then your action is to have a look at the booking thing and just pick a session week commencing 31st that works for you.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap up tonight?
No, I think that's it. No, looking forward to getting going and to have you push me on or have this as a reason for me to more constructively and actively work on things and progress things.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. Well, I say hopefully we'll, 6 months will just give you the drive and the focus, and we'll come out of it with, you'll be well on the way to developing your first project in that sense, but we'll have a whole back catalogue of notes, reflections, thoughts, discussions, which hopefully, as I say, will form the toolkit that you can apply to anything moving forward. But it's really just about giving you the energy to and the impetus in that sense, hopefully, to complete and move things on, and hopefully you'll see the development that you want to do in that sense.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
No problem. An absolute pleasure.
And have a great holiday.
Yeah, thank you. You too, if you get away. Are you going anywhere